Hey you guys, I hope you all's week is starting off good. So this past weekend I went to the movies to watch Michael, which is the first ever biopic featuring the life and career of the King of Pop, Michael Jackson. So the film stars his nephew Jafar Jackson, Nia Long, and Cole Domingo, who play their parents Catherine and Joseph Jackson. The film was directed by Antoine Fuqua and produced by Graham King. The executive producers included Michael's eldest son, Prince Michael Jackson, along with most of Michael's siblings except for Janet Jackson. So I was taking some notes as I was watching the film and wanted to come on here and share my thoughts with you all and let you know if it's worth going to see. So before I get started reviewing the film, I just wanted to reflect on how expensive the movie theater experience has become. The cost of one movie ticket was priced at $13.49, then a convenience fee was $7.50. So for 3 movie tickets, the total cost with tax came to $52. Last year, I think I spent about the same when I went to go watch Wicked Part 2. This isn't including a large bucket of popcorn that costs an additional $12. Luckily, this time I knew to bring my own candy and water, so I guess I'll do the same for next weekend when I go to watch The Devil Wears Prada 2. So stay tuned for a review on that. So does anyone have any fond memories going to the movies? Because I remember as a kid stopping at McDonald's and the dollar store, not just because it was cheaper, but the quality of the theater food back then wasn't that good. Nowadays they have where you can dine in. So it's definitely an expensive outing. I also didn't feel too well that day. It was storming out and we were late getting there. So I was mad thinking I had missed like 25 minutes of the movie, but we literally walked in the exact moment Michael flashed across the big screen, so fortunately I cheered back up. So the movie starts out in Gary, Indiana, 1966 on 2300 Jackson Street, which is the famous address of their childhood home. So if you didn't know, the family released a song in 1989 called 2300 Jackson Street as a way to counteract public scrutiny. The family around this time was celebrating solo successes. Michael was in the middle of his groundbreaking Bad tour. Janet released her historic album, Rhythm Nation 1814. However, the family was also wrestling with sensational headlines around LaToya Jackson's marriage to Jack Gordon in 1989, along with the Jacksons splitting after being dropped from their record label in 1989. Just like the opening line of the song, memories of growing up and working hard, our childhood passed us by. The first part of the movie depicts the siblings' somber memories, yet promising future growing up in Gary, Indiana. As retold by the Jackson children through the years, Joe Jackson, their father, was attributed for robbing them of their childhood innocence. So it comes to no surprise that the first few scenes depicts Joe's presence as unbearable in the home around his family. They couldn't go play outside. They were forced to stay up late nights rehearsing. This also included a scene where Joe was beating Michael for wanting to rest after a long night performing. So this sets the stage for how the movie further portrays Joe Jackson as an abusive, self-absorbed father, specifically when we get to the scene where Michael is suffering from third-degree burns to the scalp, and his father only was concerned about if Michael was going to be able to perform again. So for the most part, Joe Jackson's portrayal in this film aligns with how the family described their experiences with him, but I will say the movie didn't really explain why he was so tough. I guess it could be self-explanatory, but for context, Joe was a working-class husband and a father of 9 in the 1960s Rust Belt America, where there was high crime and poverty. He wanted to protect and prepare his children for a future much brighter compared to their environment. Joe Jackson, too, had aspirations of being in the music business, but had to prioritize the reality of raising a family. He was willing to sacrifice not being liked as a father to push his children to greatness. Despite being publicly reprimanded by his kids, Joe Jackson was still respected by them. His intentions were clear as to how he wanted his children to view him as an authoritative figure, not their friend, which was why they referred to him as Joseph rather than Dad. On the other hand, Catherine provided the nurturing and emotional support the children needed, which the film shows how Michael confided in his mother for that warmth. Joe being viewed as the problem ultimately left some of the children, especially Michael, vulnerable and susceptible to being taken advantage of. This was an unfortunate reality that affected the latter half of Michael's life and career. So let's shift the focus to the story's main character, Michael, who is played by his nephew Jafar Jackson. Him being casted in this role felt like an obvious choice, as he clearly embodies the spirit and likeness of his uncle, Michael Jackson. Years ago, I came across one of his songs and was impressed by how closely his voice resembles Michael's. The Jacksons have always been known for having soft voices and a quiet demeanor, so he quite literally comes by it honestly. Outside of the looks that were working in his favor by default, he definitely nailed the overall performance and presence of Michael, from the vocals to the choreography. So overall, I'll give his portrayal of his uncle a 10 out of 10. So the biopic explores the creative process behind Michael Jackson's iconic Thriller and Beat It music videos. One scene shows him in the studio watching an American Werewolf in London, which helped him inspire the concept for Thriller. Meanwhile, Beat It was influenced by the violence happening in Los Angeles at the time, and Michael saw his music as a way to promote peace and unity. The film briefly touches on how Michael spent his time away from the spotlight, often surrounded by his mother and his pet animals. His imagination was truly on another level. He famously kept two llamas, Louie and Lola, Bubbles, who was a baby chimpanzee, and even a giraffe named Jabbar at the family's Encino estate. Back then, Bubbles captivated the headlines. He made a cameo in Michael's Liberian Girl music video. He went with him on the Bad Tour, and Michael would even take Bubbles to Elizabeth Taylor's home for tea. In 2003, Bubbles was sent to a sanctuary in Florida when he became fully grown. He's actually still alive today at 40 years old, and Michael's estate still continues to take care of him. So these moments on screen highlighted more than just his eccentricities. They offered insight into the emotional impact of being a child star, from feeling misunderstood to experiencing deep isolation. Although his feelings were often disregarded, he genuinely had a heart for helping people. After the disastrous Pepsi commercial, he decided to donate his entire settlement money to the hospital that he stayed in. In the end, the film captures the Jacksons' rise to stardom, blending their rags to riches story with the strained relationship between Michael Jackson and his father, Joe Jackson, as well as the loneliness and isolation that followed, all while highlighting his most significant achievements. So the director's cut was originally 5 hours long, and they decided to scale it back to 2 hours. Most of these cuts were due to legal issues. There were definitely some important parts of Michael's story that were missed, such as him starring in The Wiz and the making of We Are the World. Another major moment was him buying the Beatles catalog, outbidding his friend Paul McCartney, an ironic twist considering Paul had originally introduced him to the idea of buying music publishing. Additionally, Janet Jackson not being involved in the project was a major blow to his story, especially knowing the two shared a close bond growing up in the industry as child stars and them remaining close as adults. The film ends at the start of his unprecedented Bad Tour, with his story continues. Given the film's strong box office performance, a part 2 seems very likely. So let me know what you all think of the movie if you've gone to see it.